Stop. Just stop what you're doing for a second and look at this. Go ahead. Let it sink in. What you're looking at right now is not a painting. It's not concept art. It's not a pre-rendered cinematic cutscene from some massive AAA studio with a $200 million budget and 500 developers. What you're looking at is a video game, a real, playable video game. And it was made by a tiny indie team that at one point had to pack up everything they owned and flee a country to finish it. But right now, I want you to understand something before we go any further. I have been gaming for most of my life. I have played hundreds, arguably thousands of games. And I can count on one hand the number of times a game has made me just stop moving and stare at the screen. Not because something dramatic happened in the story, not because a boss showed up, but simply because the world in front of me was so unbelievably beautiful that I forgot I was supposed to be playing. Replaced did that to me multiple times, and today I'm going to tell you everything about it. The art, the gameplay, the music, the story. This is my full, no-holds-barred, deep dive review of Replaced by Sad Cat Studios. Let's start with the thing that everyone, and I mean everyone, talks about the moment they see this game, the visuals. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. It's pixel art. I've seen pixel art 1,000 times. Shovel Knight, Celeste. Been there, done that, and I get it. I really do. Pixel art is almost its own genre staple at this point. But here is where Replaced does something that I genuinely believe no other game has managed to do quite like this. It doesn't just use pixel art. It elevates it into something that transcends the medium entirely. The team at Sad Cat Studios coined a term for what they built, and the Steam page calls it a 2.5D style. But that 2.5D label doesn't do it justice. What they've actually done is take painstakingly handcrafted pixel art, the kind of detailed, frame-by-frame, obsessively considered artwork that you'd expect from the absolute best of the 16-bit era, and then layered on top of it a suite of deeply modern 3D rendering techniques. We're talking real-time depth of field, dynamic volumetric lighting, motion blur, rain and particle effects, and cinematic lens flares that make the world feel like it's being filmed by a camera, not just drawn on a screen. The result is something genuinely astonishing. You'll be running through a slum district outside Phoenix City, this crumbling concrete and rust hellscape of forgotten humanity, and the background will have 3, 4, 5 distinct layers of parallax scrolling, each one rendered with meticulous detail. There are people in the windows of buildings you can never enter. There are lights flickering in distant towers that cast real-time reflections on puddles below your feet. There are neon signs buzzing with electrical life. Their colors bleeding into the rain-slicked pavement like watercolors dropped into a glass of water. When you are in those moments, standing in the shimmering, rain-soaked concrete and steel of this world, you feel something rare, something that very few games manage to achieve. You feel immersed. And here's what really separates Replaced from the HD 2D wave of games that have come before it. Other games use similar techniques, plenty of them, but they tend to rely on the technique itself as the spectacle. Replaced doesn't just have good visuals. The visuals serve the mood, every artistic choice, the color palette, the lighting temperature, the density of background detail is in service of atmosphere. The developers seem similarly proud of their accomplishments, and you can feel it. They inject moments where the camera actually pulls back to show off neon-soaked vistas, as if saying, hey, look at what we made. And you know what? Those moments are absolutely earned. The entire game takes place in and around the fictional Phoenix City, but despite that single location setting, it does a remarkable job of mixing up its environments. You spend the early hours outside the city's massive walls, wandering among those who have been discarded by society. Then you make your way into the downtown core itself, and the contrast is breathtaking. The downtrodden outer slums, brown, gray, wet, desperate, give way to the gleaming neon-soaked corporate corridors of Phoenix Corp, all cold blues and clinical whites, and the kind of sterile perfection that only a place built to hide terrible things could have. Every frame of this game looks like a living digital painting. The atmosphere created by Sadcat Studios is incredibly rich, truly conveying the loneliness and violence of this world. And the dynamic lighting makes the city and industrial districts feel uniquely immersive. I've heard people throw around the word cinematic a lot when describing games, and I think the word has been somewhat cheapened by overuse. But in Replay's case, it is the only accurate word. It genuinely is one of the most stylish and cinematic games I've encountered in years. And I don't think a fully 3D game in first or third person perspective could have pulled off this specific aesthetic without some level of quality loss. Purposeful, like every single pixel was placed there by someone who cared deeply about what they were making. Which, as it turns out, is exactly what happened, but we'll get to that part of the story shortly. Alright, we've established that Replies is a visual feast, but a game has to be played, not just admired. So let's talk about what it actually feels like to be inside this world if you're a gamer of a certain age, or if you've ever had a taste for gaming history. The name Prince of Persia should ring a bell. Not the 2008 version with the cell shading and the regenerating health. I'm talking about the original, the 1989 Jordan Mechner original that ran on DOS computers with their bleeping speakers and their floppy disks and their pixel-perfect level design. That game, revolutionary for its time, blended platforming, environmental puzzles, and combat into a seamless side-scrolling adventure where death was always one bad jump away. Plast carries that legacy forward, not in a retro nostalgia sort of way, not in a we're copying this on purpose sort of way, but in the deepest philosophical sense. It understands why that design philosophy worked, and it rebuilds it with modern tools. The core gameplay loop of Replast is built on three pillars: platforming, puzzle solving, and combat. And the way those three elements weave together, sometimes separately, sometimes simultaneously, gives the game a rhythm that at its best feels almost musical. Replace is a 2.5D side-scrolling action game that blends precision, platforming, light exploration, and a combat system that reveals its depth over time. At its core, it plays like a story-driven experience where you move from chapter to chapter, progressing through a mostly linear path while occasionally branching off to explore, solve puzzles, and pick up upgrades. The movement of your protagonist, Rich, feels agile and purposeful from the first moment you take control. There's weight to every step, a satisfying momentum to every jump, and a fluidity to the wall running and ledge grabbing that makes navigating the vertical architecture of Phoenix City genuinely enjoyable. Like the best platformers, Replace uses its environments not just as obstacles but as storytelling tools. The way you move through a space tells you something about the world. Progression is mostly linear, but the game does open up in certain areas, especially in the city hub. There's some verticality and light exploration that gives you a bit more freedom, and exploration is worth it. Venturing off the main path rewards you with upgrades like increased health, full recharges, and stronger attacks. The game doesn't make a big deal out of these rewards, but they matter. Now, I won't pretend the platforming is flawless. Some reviewers have noted that certain sections can feel imprecise, with jump distances occasionally feeling miscalibrated. The platforming mechanics can lack precision at times. With distances that feel slightly off, you might miss a jump and a fall, requiring you to restart a zone, which can be frustrating. This is a fair criticism. There are moments where the game's platforming ambition slightly outpaces its mechanical execution, but it's worth noting that these moments are the exception, not the rule. The vast majority of the platforming feels good, and the ones that don't, you'll power through because you want to see what's around the next corner. The puzzle design in Replaced is quiet and unassuming, which is exactly right for the kind of game this is. These aren't the brain-bending logics puzzles of a Portal or a Baba Is You. They're environmental puzzles, the kind that ask you to observe your surroundings carefully, manipulate objects in the environment, and find paths that aren't immediately obvious. They have a distinctly old-school feel reminiscent of the puzzle rooms that dotted the original Prince of Persia and its spiritual successors. Some critics have noted that certain puzzle elements, particularly the box-pushing sections, can feel repetitive in extended play. The formula of certain interactive elements does become familiar over time. That's a legitimate observation, but in the overall context of the game's pacing, the puzzle sections serve their purpose well. They give you moments of quiet reflection between the adrenaline spikes of combat, and they give the world's designers a way to show off their environmental artistry. Now here's where things get really interesting, because the combat in Replaced is, for my money, the biggest surprise the game has to offer. When you first engage in combat, your initial reaction might be, this feels simple, and you wouldn't be wrong. At first, the combat feels basic. You have your standard tools: attack, dodge, parry, jump. It doesn't seem like there's much going on under the surface, but here's the thing: Replaced's combat is playing a long game with you. Once the game forces you to actually engage with its systems, everything clicks. There's timing involved, dodges have invincibility frames, and attacks can be chained into combos if you land them correctly. Suddenly, what felt like a button mashing system reveals itself to have actual depth, a rhythm, a cadence, a back and forth between you and your enemies that rewards attentiveness and punishes recklessness. There's a parry mechanic that, when pulled off correctly, gives you a brief window of advantage that feels enormously satisfying. There are finishing moves involving reach is pistol that are genuinely cinematic, moments of punctuation at the end of a combat sequence that make you feel like you're the protagonist of an 80s action film. The combat system is simple and intuitive, evoking old-school arcade games. Few commands, satisfying hit feedback, and encounters against multiple enemies that remain manageable and frustration-free. It's the kind of combat design where the ceiling is higher than the floor suggests, and that gap, that space between first impression and mastery, is exactly where the fun lives. Replaced respects your time, rewards your patience, and delivers a world that feels as good to move through as it looks. Once its systems click, it becomes an experience that's easy to appreciate and hard to put down. And isn't that the old Prince of Persia spirit distilled into a modern form? A game that doesn't overwhelm you, that doesn't throw everything at you at once, but reveals itself slowly, like a locked room that only gives up its secrets to those patient enough to look carefully at every wall. Okay, now we get to the part of this review that I've been most excited to talk about, because the story of Replaced is, and I want to be very deliberate with my words here, the kind of story that you'll still be thinking about days after you finish playing. Let me set the scene for you. The year is the 1980s, but not our 1980s. This is an alternate timeline, a fractured version of history where nuclear disaster reshaped the trajectory of human civilization. In this world, you've got flying cars and advanced AI programs already in existence. Everybody still loves neon lighting. And that advanced AI technology is being used by the rich and powerful to extend their own lives at the direct expense of normal people. Into this world steps our protagonist Reach, an artificial intelligence who, through a catastrophic accident at the labs of the sinister Phoenix Corporation, finds itself trapped inside the body of a human being. Not borrowed, not temporarily occupying trapped. Its host consciousness is gone, and what remains is an AI desperately trying to navigate a human world, to understand human pain, human fear, human connection, while simultaneously trying to unravel the conspiracy that put it there. Now, If any of this is making the hair on the back of your neck stand up, good. That means you've already heard this kind of story before and your brain is making the right connections. Think about I, Robot, the 2004 film, yes, but more importantly, the Isaac Asimov source material, the philosophical core of it, an artificial mind grappling with questions of personhood, of rights, of what it means to be when you were designed to serve. Can an AI develop something like consciousness? Can it feel something like longing? And if it can, what does it mean for the humans who created it and the society that enslaved it? Then take that philosophical architecture and inject into it the visceral dread of the Terminator, the relentless machinery of corporate power, the sense that human beings are being processed, harvested, used up and discarded, the idea that somewhere behind the clean corridors and smiling logos of Phoenix Corporation, there's a machine, not metaphorically but literally, that has decided that some human lives are worth more than others, and that the math of that calculus is very, very ugly. That's the emotional territory that Replaced is playing in. The story in Replaced is better than it first appears. It starts simple, almost underwhelming, but as you progress, it builds. You begin to understand the world, the characters, and what's really going on. A lot of that storytelling happens outside of traditional cutscenes. The game uses a system where you collect pieces of information and read through them on an in-world device called the Wingman 2, an interface that fits the game's aesthetic beautifully. This is smart storytelling. Rather than dumping lore on you through cutscenes or infodump dialogue, the game trusts you to piece together its world organically, the way you'd actually discover information in the world where you are an AI trying to figure out what you are and why you're here. Every log you find, every message you intercept, every conversation you overhear is another tile in a mosaic that slowly, patiently assembles itself into something profound. The story is well written, deep and memorable. The concept of an AI inhabiting a human body works remarkably well within this context. It gives us genuine space to think about our own modern era, for both the best and the worst of what humanity represents. This is science fiction doing what science fiction does best, using the fantastical to illuminate the real. When Replaced asks you, through Reach's experience, what it means to be conscious, what it means to have rights, what it means to be used and discarded by a system that never saw you as fully human. It's not just asking about a fictional AI in a fictional city. It's asking about right now, about the world we actually live in. The pacing of the narrative isn't without flaws. Some reviewers have noted that the story's momentum dips in its midsection, and certain side quests feel disconnected from the emotional core of the main narrative. There are times when the narrative feels slow midway through the game, sapping the momentum built up early on, and some side missions feel like routine tasks rather than experiences that enrich the main story. These are fair criticisms, and I'd be dishonest if I didn't mention them. But the overall arc of the story, its beginning, its escalation, and its conclusion earns its emotional payoff. The setting does a good job of building nostalgia, while it screams futuristic from a distance. The game is set in an alternate 1980s, so you'll encounter logs that reference real historical figures alongside technology that fits the time period. The Blade Runner influence is easy to spot, but the work goes well beyond mere reference to carve out something unique and memorable. That's the thing about Replaced story that keeps pulling me back. It knows its influences, knows them deeply and respectfully, but is not content to simply reference them. It uses those influences as foundations and builds something that stands on its own terms, something that lives in the space between iRobot's soul and the Terminator's cold, mechanical dread, and finds something new and worthwhile in that space, something that feels, despite everything, human. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground today. Let me bring it home. Replaced is not a perfect game. I want to be clear about that, because I think honesty is more useful to you than hype. The platforming can occasionally feel imprecise. Some of the puzzle sections lean on repetitive mechanics that overstay their welcome. The narrative pacing has dips in its middle section that can test your patience. The autosave doesn't always trigger at the ideal moments, particularly during extended platforming sections, which can result in frustrating restarts. These are real issues, and depending on your tolerance for certain kinds of friction, they may affect your experience. But Replaced is a breathtakingly beautiful and narratively riveting game. It has engrossing world building and solid combat. The memorable music elevates the entire experience, making this dystopian adventure worth playing. What awaited me inside Replaced was one of the most stylish and cinematic gaming experiences I've encountered. The attention to detail is remarkable. The camera work enhances the 2.5D world in ways that feel genuinely cinematic. The storyline and characters leave an impression that lasts beyond the credits. Replaced focuses on pace, atmosphere, and immersion, and the result truly speaks for itself through its almost claustrophobic storytelling. A lone figure wandering through a world in active decay. Cast in shimmering, rain-soaked concrete, steel and light, it's a feeling conveyed with rare perfection. This is a remarkable visual achievement for its developers. And as a fan of cinematic platformers with a sharp pixel art aesthetic, it's a near-perfect fit across virtually every dimension of the game. This is a game that costs $19.99. $19.99. For that price, you get a handcrafted cyberpunk world unlike anything you've seen in pixel art form. You get a story that asks real questions about consciousness, power, and what it means to be human. You get a soundtrack that you'll be listening to long after you've finished playing, and you get to be one of the people who played the debut title from a developer that I am genuinely enthusiastically excited to watch grow. This is a great start for Satcat Studios, and I certainly hope to see further improvements in future releases. My recommendation, play it. Play it for the visuals alone. If nothing else moves you, play it for the music, play it for the story of the people who made it, who refused to let their dream be destroyed by the world around them. Play it because great games, like all great art, deserve to be experienced, and Replaced is a great game. That's my full review of Replaced. I hope you found it useful, and I hope even more than that I've given you a reason to actually go play it, because this is the kind of game that the gaming world needs more of. Not because it's perfect, but because it's sincere, because the people who made it cared deeply and visibly about what they were building. If you've already played Replaced, I want to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. Tell me what moved you, what frustrated you, what surprised you. These kinds of conversations are the best part of making videos like this. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hit subscribe if you want to see more deep dives like this one. I cover games that I actually care about, and I try to give them the kind of attention they deserve. And to the team at Satcat Studios, if by some miracle any of you happen to see this, thank you. Thank you for finishing the game. Thank you for crossing borders and oceans and years of uncertainty to get it into our hands. It was worth it. You were worth it. Until next time, take care of yourselves, everyone.